Hi, I'm Sandi Genovese, and today we are going to create a fun little scrapbook meant to hold photos. But the real fun thing is we're going to see how you can make your own stamps, which is what I used in order to create this pear that sits in the middle of this accordion book that says you are perfect. I'm making one of these for my niece's little girls. They're 6 and they're 8. So Quincy and Addison are each going to get one. I don't even have the photos, but each of these little sections are designed to perfectly hold 4x6 photos. And I just want to reinforce that some of their photos where they're all dressed up for Easter and some of their photos where they're playing soccer and they're all dirty, that they're perfect no matter what. So in order to start, I want to show you first how easy it is to make a stamp. So here is the one that I created, and I used a die cutter, but if you don't have access to a die cutter, you can cut these same projects with scissors. So I began actually with foam. You can use rubber too. I've used self-adhesive rubber. It's just not as easy to find. Every craft store I've ever been in has foam sheets. Well, what I did first is I ran the foam sheets through my Xyron machine to add adhesive, and then I die cut the pear shape. This is a Sizzix a Where Women Cook die that's a pear die. Then I realized I don't have to actually, if you don't have Xyron, double stick tape works perfectly also. Then I went ahead and I stuck them onto a clear mount, and it's easy enough. Let me just show you how easy. I'll peel the backing off one of these. Oops. So you can see that when you peel off the backing to expose the adhesive, you just want to make sure that you get a mount that's large enough for the shape that you've cut. And then, because thicker is less likely to get extra paint accidentally pushed onto my project, I usually double them up. But quite honestly, if I want to switch to a new color, I've discovered I don't even have to clean it. I just put another one over the top and start again. And at some point, if it gets thick, I can take a few layers off and then put another fresh one over the top. It is so darn easy to make these guys. But the beauty is that once you have the stamp made, all the fun things you can do with it. Now, I mentioned the mount. Then I discovered you don't even really have to use a mount. Because foam is thick and it's inexpensive, what you can do is cut a stack of them. Now, these have been Xyron, and I haven't bothered to peel off the backing, but look at how you can create a stamp that all you need to do is ink and stamp it. You don't even have to have a mount if you don't want. The real beauty comes when you ink it. Now, instead of ink, I used paint because you have a nice broad area when you're cutting it by hand versus the store-bought stamps that will have lots of detail. So what I've done, here's one that I've already stamped and it's dry, but you can, when you use paint, it stays wet long enough that you can do all your shading right on the stamp. So let me show you exactly how that happens. I'm going to stamp it onto a book page, and if you look at the one that I previously did, I have the text running exactly vertical, which to me is too symmetrical. So when I do this one, I'm going to take my book page, but I'm going to angle it a little so that when I stamp it, instead of it being perfectly square, I want it to be just a little angly from the design. But first, we need to get the paint on there. So what I've done is I've already squirted it into my paper plate. Of course, I actually do have a palette, but I find that I use this so much. And I've squirted out yellow paint, red paint, and then 2 shades of green paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, actually I think I'll start with the green because it is so small that I think it might be easiest to do this section first. I don't know if you can tell this, but my foam applicator has come loose from the wood stick, so I have to also try to make sure that I'm sort of holding the foam as well. This isn't a perfect science. I like that it doesn't need to be perfect. I'm just getting my green paint solid on what's the leaf and the stem. And I think it looks good to add a little detail. So I've used the darker green as just some place where I want to add a little shading. So I'm going to set this down so that it's not moving at all. And I'm going to add just a little bit of detail there. And then I'm going to take a new one. This one, thank goodness, is still attached, which is a little easier to work with. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just place the paint right onto the stamp. And I know with the green, I could have actually done a lot more shading, which normally I do, but just in the interest of time, I want to get enough on here so you can see how to do it. And then, you know what? It's the beauty of making it yourself. You get to decide what color, how much shading, where the shading. You can see that it's not difficult. So once you have the base color on there, and I make sure that I cut the foam a different color that I'm going to paint the stamp. Now notice I'm adding some red. I'm going to mix a little bit over here first so I don't have solid red. So I've kind of mixed the red and yellow a little. And then wherever you want to add shading, you just add it. I like things that don't look, you know, really perfect. So and then I'm going to take this and I'll take the paper and trying to make sure that I do it so that it's at a little bit of an angle. I'm going to just press it down. Make sure you get good coverage because it's a clear stamp. If I miss an area, I can always go back and add more, and you get a really fun image with as much shading and as much detail as you want to add. Now I thought it'd be fun to make the stamp first, so now it can dry while we make the little accordion book, and then we'll come back and we'll cut around it. The accordion booklet was a sheet of paper that I bought. It's wrapping paper that comes by the sheet from Paper Source. It was 26 or 26.5 inches long, and what I did is I trimmed it down so that I have 8.5 inches wide, and the length this way is 25.5, and the dimensions are so that I can accommodate 4.25 increments this way and 2.5 inches for this pocket that's going to fold up. So what I did first is I scored it 2.5 inches for this bottom pocket and folded it all the way along this edge. Get that fold first, then unfold it, and then come back in and score every 4.25 inches. So I've scored it 4.25 inches, the next 4.25 all the way to the end, and then I'm going to just, while the pocket is still open, I'm going to accordion fold on all of those score marks. Now is when it's easiest to go back, refold this pocket, and then where you have to reverse the creases to get these, now go ahead and accordion and reverse fold every place where the pocket has a fold line, and give this a nice good crease. So this is going to give you the booklet. The only adhesive I needed to use was on the two ends, so I just have a little bit, just a little, you know, maybe 1/4 inch adhesive on this end, and I'm going to close it up, and I'll try to do this so you can see it. The same thing on the other end, just a little strip on the edge, and close it up. And now you can go back and staple, you can punch a hole and put a ribbon and tie a bow, but I found that because this doesn't have, a huge number of pages, those folds are going to help keep everything together. And this way you have the perfect little section to hold 4x6 photos, with the exception of this first and this last one, because we have this little edge. So I tend to use the first and the last one as my message, in this case to Quincy and Addison. So I'll have something that I'll say with embellishments in this page and something in this page, and then I'll have photos in the other pages. The cover, all I did was I added a strip of color, different pattern paper to the top, another little band of color that I put right over the top here, and then I used a white pen to write the message. And what's the only thing that we haven't seen is the pear itself. So let's go back to looking at the finished one. I can't tell, it feels actually like this is still a little bit wet. So I'm going to take the one that I already did that's dry, and just with my scissors, I'm going to cut around it, and I'm going to leave just a slight little white edge so that it separates, because the book that I'm going to be placing it onto is also patterned. So I think it looks good to leave a little edge, but like I said, you make it yourself. You get to decide. You don't want that edge. When you cut it out, you just go right against the color. So as I'm coming around the stem and the leaf, just about finished. You can see why it needs to be dry, because you're going to be handling it. So you want to make sure that your paint is dry before you actually start to cut it out. I'm so impatient. Trust me, I've tried it and it just doesn't work if you don't let it dry. At this point then, all you need to do is put your adhesive on the back before you attach this right to the book. So you have to imagine that I've got these other layers attached, but you can see how quickly and how easily this is going to go together in order to create this really cool book. And this way, because it's inexpensive and it's fun, but it's personal, you can make lots of these. This is using paint and using it on paper or on book pages, which are made from paper. But the same paint, especially if you just use acrylic paint that's meant to be for fabric or paper, look at how great it looks when you use it with fabric. If you go to the craft store, I went to Hobby Lobby, they have a couple of aisles full of blank canvas and t-shirt project fabric things. They're all blank. They have tote bags, and I can't even tell you, this size, half this size, a quarter this size. So many options. They have all kinds of fun ones. This would be a great crossbody bag that could hold somebody's phone. But look at, these are two different stamps that I made, but I wanted to show you of the peach and a different design of a pear, once again with all the shading that you just do on the stamp. It is so fun, so easy. You will love doing this. Just remember, if you have access to a die cutter and steel rule dies, or if you want to use scissors, all of that can transform foam sheets into rubber stamps. Remember, I love hearing your comments. Be sure to share us with your crafting and your scrapbooking friends. You can always like us with a thumbs up on Facebook. However, don't forget to sign up for these free weekly videos. But if you want access to hundreds of past episodes, or if you want to be able to print an instruction sheet, then you might want to consider joining the Gold Club. Bye for now.